A well-managed compass has huge positive impacts on your relationships in the world. And at a relational level, the compass becomes kind of the tool that you're going to use to really drive trust and understanding amongst people that you interact with on a regular basis. So, what does that mean? It really means that with a well curated compasses, you can create healthy relationships that have sort of dignified and defined boundaries without the compasses kind of well implemented. You have trust will erode very quickly, and resentment kind of builds all underneath the surface. So what does it really mean? When we have a strong sense of our sort of relationship compass, we understand that there are clear and obvious sort of limits and boundaries that you set with others so that you can essentially build a predictable relationship. So when you have, for example, stuff that's sort of in scope or out of scope, or stuff that's off limits, or stuff that's sort of well tolerated, or you have behavioral sort of rules that you've established with how you want to interact around certain subjects, that creates just a ton of structural sort of familiarity that makes people comfortable. It is the beginning of that trust development cycle so that folks go, hey, I know where this person stands. I know what's kind of in scope and what's out of scope, or what's off limits and what's great. It prevents folks from really like trying to test those boundaries as much. When you're not clear about your sort of compasses here, folks tend to test boundaries, or they tend to overreach, or again, force conflict out that comes as the result of surprises in the process of just relating with others. When we talk about this sort of, a little bit more broadly, boundaries for a lot of us may have been established when you were younger as kind of a punishment, or it may seem to have been a punishment. But it is not. It is not. Setting boundaries and setting up expectations in this way, using the compasses in this way, is really just saying, look, this is the kind of relationship conditions that I'm going to need in order to be successful here, to give you what am capable of giving, or providing what I'm capable of providing in terms of vulnerability and all that kind of stuff. And everything more than that is going to have sort of a meaningful relationship impact. Either I don't have the energy and I'm going to, deplete my own sort of internal resources as a result, or I'm going to create sort of problems by overreaching. When boundaries fail between people, it oftentimes festers into resentment. So, for example, if you're the kind of people pleaser that I have been over the course of the vast majority of my life, I have a tendency to overgive, to give to others in a way, approval-seeking kind of stuff that comes off really, in the beginning, quite nice, but internally, I will, in the long term, as that sort of relationship stays out of balance, that'll turn into resentment over time. And then when you have sort of an over demanding kind of personality when it comes to some of these boundaries, you have the similar kind of other people might view you as entitled. You also then encourage folks, if you're not clear, to kind of keep score mentally and emotionally with who's doing what and all that kind of stuff. And the other thing that really is super important is the earlier you can get in front of setting boundaries in a relationship, the easier the relationship can go long term. It's much harder to kind of establish a boundary after a relationship's developed, where you've already kind of overgiven or overtaken or what have you. Saying no becomes very, very difficult, right? It becomes emotionally expensive to do. So establishing those limits in your relationships as early as you can, and occasionally when you have to recreate those boundaries or establish them, you can start asking meaningful questions like, hey, I think I've done a thing, or I think you've done a thing that may have a long-term impact on the relationship here. Can we talk about this as part of us establishing a meaningful sort of expression here? I care enough about the relationship. Let's have a conversation about what's going on so we can move the conversation forward, because I think I started overdoing this or underdoing that, and it's resulted in these X, Y, and Z behaviors. Again, this is all part of a healthy boundary setting conversation that you can use the compasses to kind of help you define. As you take the time to reflect on this, you'll find that there are kind of lots of places in your life where those undefined relationship boundaries can really benefit from just, putting a little bit of thought into it and saying, hey, maybe I should pull back here, or maybe I need to reestablish or sort of renegotiate the way this relationship's going in this space.